I'll make it right again, but it's no use, you said. And my hunger grows and grows. I have to write the meaning of my life, or else everything's in vain. When the glory tries to tempt you, it may seem like what you need. But if glory makes you happy, why are you so broken up? So tell me how it felt when you walked on the water. Did you get your wish? Floating to the surface quicker than you sank. I know. So tell me how it felt when you walked on the water. Did you get your wish? Floating to the surface quicker than you sank.
All right. Wake up. It's the first of the month. Welcome to another exciting episode of Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam gaming. And we're going to get into some trouble today. I am, of course, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host. And joining me, as always, is my longtime rival. We've since buried the hatchet from last week. But Adam Blue, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Yeah, I like to, we've been doing this for so long. It's like, and we talk outside of this, but it's like, how can we sort of create some sort of fun, like energy? Like, when I did that stream by myself last week, it was kind of fun in a way, like interacting with the audience, but it's like I want us, yeah, and I think we'll do it. We kind of develop more of these like subplots.
Yeah.
The one I was trying to push just wasn't gonna work. No one believed we were mad at each other, so but
I don't know. I got some concerned messages on Thursday on Discord, during the show, and people were like, "Wait, is something like really going on between you and Adam? Like, what happened?"
that's
Um,
awesome, man.
so and yes, there was. There is some serious beef. We have not resolved it, but we're gonna put it aside for the show today because we're
Yes,
professionals and this is what we do.
of course. Yeah,
I see the usual suspects in chat as always: Ultronymous, Dylan, Zeonic Shadow,
yeah.
Simply New Type. Thank you for joining us last week, by the way, Simply New Type. That was Kyle. Took us on a deep dive
I
through
know.
through late UC, and we talked X-Men, which was pretty cool.
I know in, like, the content he puts out, the X-Men videos are, like, my favorite thing.
They're so great.
I know, it's like it's where I can go as an adult, and reflect on the series, and
Yeah.
I talked about that before. I can't really do it at that depth with my son yet, you know? So, yeah, being able to have that type of, content is awesome.
Yeah, it's lighthearted and yet takes a critical look at these things that,
Yep.
I think that sometimes we kind of get the rose-tinted goggles about the things that we used to enjoy when we were kids, and I think that because X-Men '97 has that appeal to it, where it's like the nostalgia appeal,
Yeah.
a lot of people are kinda like, "Everything about it is great," and it's like, well, I think that you can observe it with a critical lens, which
And it's
Kyle
exactly
does.
what's going on with that because it's where we don't it's like we can have that critical lens, but then we don't need to then constantly dogpile that as time goes on. It's like, yeah, we've talked about it critically, but we can all agree we love this thing, so let's just talk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think King Dylan says it best. When are we gonna address the lack of thickness of Rogue? And Zeonic
Oh,
Shadow, agrees.
oh,
Yeah, I think that it's funny because there's the meme about it there, but, like, in actuality, I think that there's something to be said about
yeah,
that character losing her physique from the '90s, but,
yeah, because
maybe
I've
we
been
all lost a little weight.
well, no, because 'cause I've been watching the old shows, with my son, and it's been very fun. It's actually the old one is entertaining even within the jank. In fact, I think he likes the older show better than the new one, and I get it because the new one does what okay, I've read, I think, the first 8 issues of X-Men #1, and what I've learned from it, it's very monologue-y. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what this new show is doing. When I was a kid, I didn't realize that's what the comics were doing. I probably didn't understand half the things that were happening. But now I'm seeing it's very monologue but philosophical. And this show is actually reflecting that. I guess it makes sense because of the audience.
Yeah,
Well, I again, they struck the balance. But speaking of Rogue, I took the head from the new one. I don't know if that's
very
and then
nice.
I got the body of the old one, which
Perfect.
you get
The
so
that's
it yeah,
that's
because
exactly.
I love the new face that
And we
they
gotta do the same thing with Jean Grey too, because, like, the old, costume where it was, like, the ponytail through the back of the weird that was a big thing in the '90s, right? Like,
this is yeah, this
like,
is the
Gambit had the same thing with, like, the half face
yeah, it's
mask
like
and
a
the hair
half
hanging
mask.
over.
Yeah, this is actually from the new one, the '97,
Oh,
and
sweet.
it comes with a haired version
Okay,
or long hair version, so
sweet.
yeah, it's been fun, like, this is the '97 Cyclops with the love triangle head, so this is like a super badass version, and
That is
then
awesome.
the '97 Wolverine is just so I have my Gundams and X-Men hanging out.
Well, and, we're gonna be talking about, Gunpla and hobbies and things like that, so I'm really glad that you showed those because if you guys haven't checked it out yet, Adam dropped a video about how to
Oh,
pose
yeah.
figures and Gunpla, and, some of these, X-Men make an appearance there, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that you took it from the perspective of, like, all kinds of posable, collectibles, as opposed to being like, "This is just how to pose your Gunpla," or, "This is just how to pose a Robot Spirits
Yeah. And
or an
that's what I
action
was
figure."
figuring as I was doing it because it would be simple for someone like me, I think, to say, "Well, these are robots. You should only be able to pose them like this," but, it's fun when you can sit there and come up with something dynamic that then your mind can see as, "Oh, wow, that's a good pose."
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think that there's some narrative there, like, there's the telling a story through the pose, and I think we
yeah.
talked about this when we were doing some live, weathering on a Gunpla where it's like, everything, whether it's posing, whether it's painting, there's a story to be told that's there for you to kind of communicate, and I think that's I mean, if
Yeah.
a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a pose is worth at least 1,500.
Yeah, that's funny. No, but yeah, it's true. I think, yeah, you could tell so much storytelling,
Yeah, for
posing.
sure. So, yeah, I've got a couple of quick announcements, of course, and then we can hop into the topic in chief today because I think we're gonna dwell on it for a while. We're getting a little deep. So, like last week, I got some, kind of unfortunate news. Everything's okay, but it got me thinking about a lot of things, and that's where kind of the inspiration of today's topic came from. Is like staying motivated within your hobbies and so, yeah, we're gonna get into that, but first, I do wanna show this is me practicing my posing skills using a couple of your techniques, actually, Adam. I've got
Oh.
my computer monitor loaded up
Oh, yeah.
with an image of some colonies behind this shot. It is, of course, the 1st of the month, which means my, Patreon perk went out for those who are subscribers. If you want a 3D model of the capsule in which Hilda Badan was killed, go subscribe there now, and you
Wait, so
can
that was printed?
yes. So it's kind of a funny story. So my wife bought well, tell you what, I'm actually making a video about it,
Oh, sick.
and so I'll drop a video. I'm hoping it'll be done by Friday because I did some airbrushing to try and make this thing look legit. So yeah, stay tuned for the full video on this, and I'll tell the full story about what happened and what inspired this piece because I think it's kind of funny.
No, that looks good. I remember when we first linked up just now, I didn't even realize that's what that was, that was a pose you made. I was like, "Oh, this is neat artwork. What's this from?"
Yeah, so I've got my Gundam Mark II, on my
Oh.
custom action base here. So I was I figured when I do the finished photography of this piece, I definitely need to have like the Gundam Mark II and
And
uh
speaking of that, I got my, a shipping notice that the Ver anime of the Titans Mark II is on its way. I cannot wait.
nice. Yeah. That'll be an interesting one to compare. Do you have
Yep.
either so you have the real grade of the Mark II.
I
You
have
have
the
a high
real
grade?
grade, I have the high grade, I have the Verkaw, I have the original Robot Spirits release. I love the Mark II, so I have, like, every version. I don't have, like, every version like Titans and AUG. I usually
Right.
get AUG when I can and Titans if there's no option, although I got the Titans Mark II specifically for my, Advanced Zeta shelf, so,
Oh, yeah, you gotta have everything in the Titans yellow and purple,
yeah.
and actually, I only just recently learned that the real grade Titans Mark II comes with a additional accessories that don't come with the AUG version, so that's kind of
Oh,
interesting.
I didn't know that. Do you
Um,
happen to know what it is
I
offhand?
don't recall,
I'll look
someone
it
was
up later.
talking about it on Discord, and I was like, "Oh, well,
Huh.
then maybe I need to look into that because that could be
Yeah,
interesting."
okay. Hmm,
But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the wall, the dreaded, procrastination. We've mentioned this on the show before, trying to get out of like creative ruts and things like that. And I got into, well, I don't want to say I got into a debate on Twitter, but I saw a tweet that really like stirred something in me and made me angry, which now, as you guys know, isn't very hard. It's like, hey, did you breathe today? Steven's probably mad about it. But, so I did wanna show you guys what this was about. This was my quote tweet of what I saw here. I don't even know who this person was that tweeted it, but they are verified, so apparently, they're a big deal. Um, but this was one of those motivational posts, right? The guy says, "Oh, Samuel L. Jackson got his first major role at 40. Tolkien started Lord of the Rings at 45. Darwin published The Origin of Species at 50." He goes on and lists a couple of other examples of people who made it big in their careers late in
yeah,
life. And the message, of course, is a positive one. It's like, hey, don't don't wait to like, go pursue your dreams.
yeah,
um, Now this is where I took issue with it, is I was like, it's disingenuous because to say that Samuel L. Jackson only became famous at 40, that doesn't mean that he started acting at 40. It wasn't his first role that he ever
right.
got. That was just his break. Tolkien may have written Lord of the Rings at 45, but he was writing all of his life. That's not like, you're not going to wake up one day and suddenly paint a masterpiece. You're not going to, you there's no substitute for experience, right?
Yeah, you
And so
can't
that's
just
what
build a great pyramid without technology from previous no, I'm joking, but yeah.
right. Um, so, and I think that the tone of my tweet here is obviously a little aggressive, but my point is, don't put things off because you think that it's never too late to start something, right?
Yeah.
I think that you should pursue your dreams. You should not give up on your dreams, and you should definitely start them as soon as possible. But, don't wait until you're 50 to do these things. Like, do them now. And
Yeah,
and
just
and that's really what the message of this should be, is that it's not too late to start, but don't give up because you never know when your success is going to come. You never know uh, when your masterpiece is gonna come along. And that's one of the reasons I still play with toys and build Gunpla is it's like,
yeah.
yeah, I may have started doing this when I was 13 and I still suck at it. So, maybe when I'm 40 or 63, I will be a master Gunpla builder.
Yeah, you know what? You bring up some good points because I think, especially as someone ages, they kind of get discouraged because they're like, "Well, I'm older now. Am I disconnected from?" I think there's something where we feel like late teens to 20s is the in age.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's true. In fact, I think I'm learning, and I think I'm learning through video games now. Video
Mm,
games are a younger medium, and they've matured now, and I've realized how much there are giant markets, but for all different types. So it could be, like I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. I don't
yeah.
know if I'm going the right directions to do it. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but let's say I don't direct a movie until 50, that's still fine. In fact, there's so many directors that are doing it at 50. It's almost like age doesn't matter, but I feel like maybe people might feel, "Oh, I'm too old. I don't have that prior experience." But no, there's experiences you've had that can inform what your interests are, and you can just continue to gain experiences even, I
Yeah.
think, as you're older, and if you're open, there's way more technologies available to then really fully realize your dreams and get there. So,
Oh, absolutely, and I think that it's never been easier to learn how to do something now
yeah,
than any time in human history. You know, the democratization of education and tools to do these things. You know, you mentioned video games, which is a great example because in the 90s you didn't have tools like Blender, the
yeah,
free, 3D modeling suite, and it has its own game engine built in. It's not, fantastic, but it's there if you want to use it and you want to learn it. Unity and Unreal, everyone was using in-house game engines if they did, or if they just
oh,
coded
yeah.
it, from scratch. So, like I said, it's never been easier to gain knowledge and gain experience doing something. So, yeah, my point is go chase your dreams.
Yeah,
um,
and there's multiple ways to go about that too. When I started the Gundam Explained YouTube channel, it was just more of, "Okay, I just need to post." Like,
yeah.
that's like that thing you can think of where it's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I just need to do a thing, even if it's not the way I want the thing to turn out. I just need to do the thing, because
Yes.
then, again, you get that experience. There's another aspect that I have applied recently on my video game channel. It's like, "Okay, I know how to do the thing. How can I incorporate it into my schedule where I'm always going to then do it all the time?" You know?
And
And in a way where I'm not burning myself out.
that is a perfect example because, I know a lot of people, particularly in our audience, we all struggle with like burnout and with lacking motivation. I'm guilty of procrastinating, but that's exactly what I was going to bring up is you have enlightened me to this idea that the easier you make it to do something, the more likely you are to do it and do it consistently.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where if you find that you only write or you only, code video games or you only do Gunpla when you have the motivation and you have like the space and time to do it, you're less likely to do it. But if you have like a dedicated space, if you have a dedicated time that you are like, I'm just going to build for 30 minutes, I'm not going to try to complete it. I'm just going to build for 30 minutes. And if I get the thing done, then that's cool. I can move to the next one. But like, you know, it's much easier to do like on a habitual schedule and build those
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah, and, it's funny, I think our audience will, be familiar with this, but, early on when we were starting, when we would, do live streams together, I was always having technical issues, and then my solution is, "Okay, I'm gonna buy the thing that does everything automatically." And
Yeah.
at first, that was nice, I went, I don't know, a year where I was just doing it by paying, but then there was always issues there too, and I'm like, "Well, I shouldn't pay then, I might as well just do it with the free software." But then what I've then learned is after mastering that free software, I can then do what I was talking about, where it's like, "Oh, then I can stream at will anytime because now I just know the software." And and
And I would
yeah.
even go so far as to say that your content has gotten better using the free stuff that now that you've mastered it than it was when you were using the paid versions that you were, you
Yeah,
know
because they're paid, so they do things automatically, but then that's restrictive in a way.
exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can see that. Totally.
So, bless you. My dog's over here sneezing. The allergies are hitting all of us, pretty
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, even here, it's been crazy.
So, so yeah, fighting through that urge of, the lack of motivation, again, that's something that sometimes you need a catalyst, but sometimes you can be your own catalyst.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I always do, and I've mentioned this before, where it's like, and this could be to my detriment, where it's like I have lots of different things going on at the same time, so that if I if I don't have the time or the energy to work on one project, I have something else that I feel like I can work on. And I know that there's probably even people that are watching now that they feel like there's something they want to do, but they don't have the motivation or the willpower to do it. And that's probably the worst feeling because we all have things that we don't want to do that we procrastinate on. But then, if there are things that you want to do that you find yourself making excuses about why you can't do it, you know, I think that there's a deeper root issue that probably needs to be addressed. And I think that if you commit to like you said, a schedule, make it easy
Yeah.
to make it easier on yourself to do the thing, then you're more
Yeah,
likely to.
so yeah, even to speak on like me wanting to be a filmmaker so bad, but I always look at like what am I'm not filming a movie. I did a lot of student films like in high school and early 20s, but what happens is it's like, okay, well, what is the story going to be? Are people going to care? Am I going to have the right equipment for it to look good? Is it going to sound good? And then I'm discouraged because I'm like, well, I can't make it look like what I want it to be. And so that other aspect of Gundam Explained was, well, this is just a way for me to leverage storytelling, video editing, using equipment. Yeah, it might not look like a motion picture, but I am trying to meet a production quality then in the YouTube space that people would say, "Oh, that's good production quality." Which I'm hoping again, it's like learning that then how can I then apply that to the filmmaking?
I was gonna say, I'm glad that you brought this up because this is something that I wanted to ask you about, particularly in the realm of video games and your experiences. Because for me, this was a lesson that I learned kind of later in my 20s. Um, how do you feel about recontextualizing your dreams into things that maybe you didn't expect? So, like for instance, you say that that you want to be a film director, and I think that there are video game directors such as Hideo Kojima that he probably should be a film director because he doesn't make very good games. I
Yeah,
think that his games succeed in spite of him, not because
right.
of him. Because the gameplay, I don't think he necessarily even cares. He just wants to make 8-hour long cutscenes. So what I think is interesting is that he found a medium that he can do the thing he wants to do without being in the field that he wanted to be in. And I think that the same could be said of Yoshiyuki Tomino. Like Tomino,
Yeah,
he probably would prefer if he were a live action film director,
yeah,
but it's very hard to make giant robot live action shows. So
yeah.
it's like he was restricted to the anime in the 70s and 80s. So do you feel like that's something that you would be drawn to, being a director in a different medium?
Exactly. In fact, I would almost say like when I say that I want to be a filmmaker, I feel like there's a real more specific aspect of that. I don't know what it is, but a filmmaker just seems more along the line because growing up I loved live action movies, fantastical things happening. The idea of choreographing of how I'm showing that shot and then because I like action, it's like how interesting of a story can I tell that when the action happens, people are more invested in an action scene? Because the things I hate about when I watch an action movie is, well, that story wasn't too interesting, so I'm not that invested in the action. And and so yeah, it could be that it's more video games that but on the surface, I'm not seeing live action. On the surface, I'm seeing CGI, but that could be fine because people in a video game can still get an immersive experience. In fact, I think there's more room in video games where, and I think Dark Souls does this well, where the story, the narrative isn't thrown in your face. You pick it up as you go, and it's mainly about the gameplay experience, but the story, lack thereof, the little bits you get, make and what I always call Dark Souls survival horror because what it's
Yeah.
doing is it's putting you in that survival horror state as you're doing things. Whereas I played recently that Another Crab story or something, or it was it was
Yeah,
a Souls game, but you're a crab. You don't get that feeling at all. In
true.
fact, it's weird because it's underwater cartoony, but you're doing Souls combat. So and I don't want to take anything away from that game, but I think that's a layer then removed of integrating the player's experience with the mechanics, like the story and the mechanics. So kinda yeah, going back to it, it's like I feel like filmmaking, if I had the resources, could easily allow me to produce what I want. But maybe it's video games. Maybe it's and I've thought about this too, where there's all these stories I wanna tell. What if I make a YouTube channel where I'm editing videos the way I do, but I'm telling my own stories?
Yeah,
Maybe that's
absolutely.
yeah.
Or as King Dylan suggests, try making a stop motion short film using your figures.
That is a great suggestion. In fact, me and my son have, like, contemplated that, and we see how hard it is, how much work people put
Oh,
in
yeah.
doing that. Like, and that's interesting. So then in that regard, that seems like a good idea. I even looked into it and I'm like, "No, that's too hard."
Yeah,
So
and
then that
even
means
using special tools, like my DSLR has, like, stop motion animation like a feature on there to
Oh,
help
yeah,
you do it. But
yeah.
even then, it's incredibly difficult.
So then this kind of goes to what you're saying, because then it makes me think, okay, I looked into the stop motion and didn't want to do it. So there's something with the stop motion that I don't care about. What is it? It's maybe the time it takes to pose. Like, yeah, I like to pose a figure. I like to have a shot of it looking cool. But the time it takes to get there isn't the interest for me, which for some people, that might be the interest. The
Yeah,
details that they're able to put along the way and take their time with. So,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I do want to bring up, of course, I was just telling Adam prior to this. Oh, let me see. I'm on the wrong window here. I talk about this guy probably once a year. I definitely watch the last lecture that he gave at Cornell University at least once a year. And I think that he has a lot of great insight towards achieving your childhood dreams. In fact, that's what his last lecture was called. Spoiler alert, this man's name is Randy Pausch. If you haven't seen the last lecture, look it up on YouTube. If you've got an hour to spend, you are going to get some great motivation from it. And yeah, RIP, Randy Pausch.
No, I did not know he had passed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he actually the last lecture series is funny. He introduces himself and says, like, his dad always says, "Oh, if there's an elephant in the room, you should introduce it," and he said, "Well, I have pancreatic cancer, my liver is full of tumors, but,
Oh,
I've got 6 months to live," and the title of this lecture series used to be, like, the last lecture you would get wanna give before you die, and he's like, "Nailed the venue." Um, but like, it's kind of funny. He's very tongue in cheek about it, and he's like, "Look, I'm not in denial about what's happening to me. I want to get that out of the way so that I can focus on what the core message of what I want to tell you guys is, which is achieving your
wow.
childhood dreams." Which this guy, absolute inspiration. He's full of just like absolute gems of wisdom like that.
Okay.
So
I need to watch this then.
yeah, absolutely. If you feel yourself lacking motivation and lacking um, drive, or
Yeah.
you're just kind of curious about, um, I don't know, just how to push yourself further.
Yeah.
um, he's the guy to do it for sure. And so he was actually famous in the world of VR. He was a Disney Imagineer, hence the Disney Imagineering shirt that he's sporting in this photo. And so he, helped develop a lot of VR education programs, and helped a lot of people kind of push the field of VR I mean, to where it is now. And this was like, late 90s, early 2000s, where that was
Oh, wow.
not a huge
Yeah.
field, right? Like he
Like, it
worked
started and failed, like, in the early '90s or something.
Yeah, I mean, he worked on like the Aladdin ride at Disney World where you
Oh,
like fly the magic carpet.
yeah.
Um
Wow.
so very cool stuff. And one of the things he talks about is, head fake learning. And of course, this is where the title of today's stream comes from, is the wall. So this is the slide that he brings up
Mm.
several times during his lecture, is brick walls are there for a reason. They prove how badly we want things. And I would even go so far as to say, in addition to that, brick walls are not there for you. They're there for the guy that doesn't want it as badly as you do.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting, because it's just making me think, how many things maybe do you have in your life that actually allowed the brick wall to be there and you don't know it, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And is that, maybe that's the filter of like whether or not this is something that you truly want to
Yeah.
pursue. Um, I think that brick walls can come in many forms too. They can be people that, are holding you
Yeah.
back. They can be habits that you need to break. They can be, there's a lot of different things. And I think that sometimes those difficult times can become opportunities. And I mentioned this before, like when it comes to my own work with Gunpla and things like that, when my daughter was first born, I was like, man, like I'm never going to have time to be mixing paints and cleaning my airbrush and doing
Mm.
all this stuff. That's like a time investment that I don't have anymore. And so that's when I started tinkering with electronics and learning LEDs and learning programming and stuff that I can do, at night when she's asleep, or like, I can pick it up and put it down and not have to worry about, paint setting and things like that. So it gave me an opportunity to explore things that I was afraid to do before. And the interesting thing is now, as she's getting older and she's becoming more independent, I'm like, now I'm starting to get the time back to clean the airbrush and get that stuff going again.
Wow.
And so it's this kind of little dance that's going on where there's seasons to life. And I think that sometimes what might seem like a challenge is actually just an opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. Like working within limits, like yeah, a brick wall can kind of sometimes show, yeah, where your passions are and what you're capable of. And I
Yeah.
think, and that's interesting. Because in the consulting work I do, there's times where I have to talk, over uh, whatever those programs are, where there's Teams or
Yeah.
Zoom, to speak with uh, clients. And, I remember at first being a little timid about it, and then just doing the Gundam Explained so often, like, has slowly got me to like better find my voice and easily speak on camera without really even thinking about, oh, I'm on camera. How do I, and um, yeah, that's an interesting way to break through something. It's like you're not expecting to, but it's like, well, I do this for my job and I'm doing as a hobby, I'm on camera, and then they kind of combined and then elevated me. So when I'm at my day job, I feel so much more comfortable.
Absolutely. I still am stuck using tons of filler words and things like that. I will tend to pause a little bit. You'll notice that when I take a long pause, it's because I'm trying to avoid saying.
That's a good one. I think I'm a big ummer. When I edit my videos, even though I do the auto editing, there's these little spots that are just me going, and I'm like, "Oh my god, Adam."
Oh, geez. Yeah. And I just edited a video for my job, short
Oh,
advertisement that these guys were not used to being on camera, obviously. And so there was a lot of the filler words. So, but yeah, with regard to like these brick walls, it's just like you mentioned with the stop motion animation, where it's like, that was the brick wall that
yeah,
you hit, where it's like, that this is not the path for you because that's one barrier too far.
yeah.
Whereas the barrier to entry for something like video games is so much lower in terms of storytelling and getting a narrative told. I think that that's a much more accessible goal, and it's something that you're still passionate about. So
Yeah,
those can be sometimes, yeah. I think that the brick wall helps you recontextualize what it is that you really want, as opposed to just telling you like no. It and like I said, this is something that I learned in my 20s where it's like I always wanted to I went to college thinking I was gonna be a writer. I wanted to write novels and short stories and things, and then as I picked up comic books, I was like, "Well, maybe I could write comics and have someone draw them for me." And I was it I learned very quickly, like, no one's going to draw your comic book for you, unless you
yeah,
pay them.
yeah,
So, you might as well either learn to draw or give it up, and so, like you, I slowly discovered that the type of storytelling that I wanted to do and the type of sharing that I wanted to do was not in text form, but it was in video games. It was in
uh,
the hobbies and things that I was doing that already were things that made me happy. And they were ways that I was procrastinating doing the actual writing that I claimed I wanted to do. It's like if I had just sat down at my computer and started writing, then I probably would have written a book. But instead, I was building Gunpla, putting off the writing, and it's like, oh, it's because that's not what I wanted to do.
yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing sometimes where, yeah, we think there's something we wanna do, but there's something about it that we do wanna do. It's like filtering, and I do that nowadays too, especially with video games where it's like, I'm not gonna play every game. I'm
Yeah,
gonna try to find the essence of what I like about video games and just play those. And two, the other thing I tell myself is I don't need to beat a game. If I feel like I've got enough out of a game, I don't need to beat it because then there's this, and sometimes you don't realize it's a big deal, but it's like this undue pressure you give yourself that you really don't need, but you're giving it yourself. Like there's some weird thing where you're like, no, I need to beat the game.
I will say that you should go back and finish Stray.
Really?
I mean,
Did you
I
finish it?
enjoyed it. I know that you got to a point
Yeah.
where,
Once you get
the
the
little
I think the
backpack
thing yeah, the backpack with the
that's like 10 minutes into the game.
yeah, and I was like, this because I was thinking it was gonna be like an open world cat
Yeah,
game
and
where I can
and
explore as a
there
cat.
there
Yeah.
is most of that, there the backpack thing is kind of just a character that you're interacting with, so, like I said,
Okay, I
give
might
it
try
give it
that.
another chance.
Okay.
You still get to play as a cat, you're not like, a cyborg, but,
Okay. Because that new one sounds good, even though
yes.
that's getting off topic, that there's like on Switch or something, they're coming out with another cat game, but
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants cat games, to be honest with you.
yeah, what is it with that?
Y
Yeah.
I would rather be sleeping than working, so
Oh, yeah. There you go.
so, but yeah, you talked about, oh, geez, sorry, had a thought and it vanished on me because I was distracted by talking about Stray.
Cats. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we were talking about yeah, again, like the brick walls, finding the things you like to do. I think that's very important.
yeah, pretty much.
It yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, back to that idea of, like, how to find the motivation to do your hobbies is to
yeah.
try and find those things that find what it is about your hobbies that you truly enjoy, and then maybe recontextualize them in that way.
And, you know, you brought up something else. It's something that I've been dealing with too, is like with your hobbies, sometimes it's good to have multiple,
Mhm.
but you don't wanna have too many. I feel like you have to pick a couple things. It doesn't have to be so rigid, it can morph over time. Like, for instance, I would just be collecting a bunch of action figures. Like, it would be
Yeah.
anything. It wouldn't just be Gundam or Marvel. It would be like a bunch of stuff. And over time, I was like, I don't really need all this. And I think I get more joy out of spending the money and then having it arrive than I do having it. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm just focusing on Gundam, right? And then, with the X-Men
And now X-Men, yeah.
well, yeah, and then with this X-Men really well, actually, it started last year where then I was playing Castlevania games. I'm like, "Oh, I like that I can now" because I went all into Gundam,
Yeah.
not realizing, "Oh, I need that backup hobby," and it was, the Castlevania. So I was like, "Oh, between Castlevania," which is interesting what I realized when I say it's a hobby, it's like I'm into a world. And then how
Yeah.
can I experience that world either through games, movies, figures, whatever. So it was, yeah, I can balance, the Gundam and Castlevania. And then, starting this year with X-Men, it's like, okay, I can insert that third thing, and I am doing it where it's like part of my day. When I wake up in the morning, I wake my son up early too before school, and we watch X-Men show.
I was gonna
And
say that's part of it is that, like, it's a hobby that you're sharing with your son so that it's not something that you're 100% committed to.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's what helped with Gundam also because with the Discord, I was meeting all these people that knew way more about it than me. Not only the Gundam world, but then Gunpla. So it's like, okay, I'm sharing this with other people. And what's neat is Castlevania is kind of like my little personal little thing where I'm fine with it because I'm in the game, lost in the world, listening to the music, and it's like this is yeah my thing. And I think that's kind of a good way for people to balance hobbies or things they like because then let's say you do come up to a brick wall with something that you thought you were into or you lost motivation, that's a time where you can like kind of like pivot that. And I would even say the video I did yesterday was inspired by my recent X-Men purchases, even though you know, I love the robot spirits, and then I did that video with, 16 that I posted on Monday, like, featured builder, and then
Yeah.
talking to him about the dioramas and stuff made me think, "Oh, yeah, that's kind of the essence of Gundam." It's like, I like the show, yeah, but I like the figures and the Gunpla, so let me dive a little more into that, and I was like, "Wow, why don't I just make a video about something that I really like to do and I wanna talk to people about doing?" And on a basic level too, it wasn't like my video about posing was advanced techniques. It was like, here are just some basic things to just keep in mind. So you can just, if you have something on your desk, you can just kind of do little, changes, put it down and be like, that looks cool. Something simple.
Yeah, because I think everyone's kind of guilty of doing that static, like, "Hey, look, I finished my master grade, and I
Yeah,
don't wanna move it." Like
I know. And even then I got to a point to where then there were just only certain poses I would be doing with the Gunpla, and it's like, there's more. But then, yeah, sometimes personally, you could be like, yeah,
You like
this,
what you like, you know?
yeah, this robot can be a superhero,
Yeah.
or I like my things to be robotic. Yeah, so
So
um,
yeah, now I remembered what you brought up that I wanted to talk about was how yeah, when you get older, which you know you and I are getting older, you do become more you have more discretion about the things that you
yeah,
enjoy. And
sure,
that's where those brick walls can become useful because
yeah,
you know whether it's video games, you know, I feel like everyone kind of has that thing when they're younger where it's like, yeah, I do have to play every game. Yeah, and I have to finish it. Otherwise, you know, I'm gonna have an incomplete experience. And I think that goes for your hobbies and stuff as well. It's like, you know, I'm thinking of even just like hanging up the cape on painting stuff because you know it's like, well, I really am starting to prefer the 3D printing and the
mm,
wiring and like the electronic side of it more. And so you start to kind of narrow your focus towards the things that you truly care about. And the faster you can do that, then I think the better you're going to be at it as you get older and as you gain more experience doing that thing. But
yeah, yeah,
and this is where I'll go back to, Jake Parker's advice when it comes to, you know, having a product, not a project. You know, finishing something is more important than getting it 100% perfect the way you want it because and he does it in reference to, like, comic books, but I think the same could be said about video games, movies, or even just YouTube videos like you and I
yep,
do. Sometimes it's more important to get the thing done so that you have experience with each stage of the thing than to just keep starting things over because you're not where you want to be with it.
yeah,
And
and
that's I'm so guilty of that.
no, but I think that's something we do from an early age. Like even with my youngest, I will see like he'll draw something and he'll be like, "Ah, it doesn't look that great." And I'm like, "Just finish it.
Yeah,
Just finish it even doesn't look great because then you'll know what to do next time." And I try to like tell him like your early age is it's just repetition. Just do the thing over and over. Like it doesn't matter like making the game. Like you'll have a plan for a game. And I'm like, just make whatever. Like and so yeah,
yeah,
he made all these different worlds just because it's just to make it. And um yeah, that really does help because I think yeah, once you're older, is when you really know what you want. Not all the time. I think sometimes that's a learned thing or something will happen in your life where
definitely.
you're like, "Okay, maybe I should think more about what I spend my time with." Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you typically will become more, picky about the things that you like as you get older
Mhm.
just, you know, and that's down to the foods that you like. It's just like, "Hey, I've had that before. I don't want to eat that anymore." But
Yeah, I
it
had that with, Marvel Legends when I first would collect Marvel Legends. This was not too long ago, 6, 7 years ago, because I liked the X-Men, but, you know, more
right.
MCU was like, "Ah, not really." And then I was like, "I don't like Marvel Legends." But then I kept the X-Men, and I was like, "Okay, it's not that I don't like Marvel, or it's not that I am a Marvel fan, I just like X-Men." And so I was able to, like, then take the essence of what I like and just double down on that, and it's been very enjoyable. And sometimes you
Exactly.
gotta do that, like, if there's something like, let's say it's hard to get into Gundam because UC is just so crazy, then don't care about UC. Make it where you're a wing guy and then or girl, and then later on, maybe as you feel more comfortable of taking in Gundam information, you jump into another timeline or something.
Yeah, and that, I think, brings up another big issue, like, obviously, this is a thing in the Gundam fandom, but I think that this is true of everything, right? And it took me getting on YouTube and getting absolutely murdered in the comments to learn this. Don't care what other people think is the
Yeah,
best piece of advice that I can possibly give you. You know, when you're getting into Gundam and, like, you know, say you are a G Gundam guy or a wing guy, you know, there are going to be people out there like me who are going to judge you and, you know, call you a loser for not watching UC stuff. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to me because you are doing things for your own enjoyment and you are growing
yeah,
yourself as a person. And once you start introducing that external validation factor and you start comparing yourself to other people, to other content creators, to other anything, it's going to diminish your enjoyment of that thing exponentially. And so, yeah, if you're starting out making a video game, don't think that you're going to make the next Tears of the Kingdom. Like, first of all, why would you? Because that game's terrible. But no, you gotta, you can only compare yourself to the person that you were yesterday. And so be
Yeah.
better than the person you were yesterday. And again, it took me far too long in life. And I'm still, I would say, relatively young. I'm not going to say that, 40 is the new 20, but, but yeah, I mean, I wish that I had not been so concerned about what other people thought. And when I got on YouTube and I started sharing the things that I was learning, first of all, I think that you should always share the things that you are learning and experiencing, because you don't know if somebody else is having that same issue, and you might have stumbled upon something that they haven't.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good point because I think there's always it's always good, I guess, in a way to have a that community or talk to other people about the thing you like. But I think it's almost like a box of wheat thins. You open it, you start eating, before you know it, you ate the entire thing, and then you feel like crap. So, what I'm trying to say is only have a few wheat thins, like,
Yeah,
if you like something and you wanna talk about it online, don't go, like, to Reddit or it's like, try to
yeah.
find where people are talking about it, engage. If at first it seems super negative, maybe back away, but, like, it is still good to see the critical and to discuss the critical element, so it's a balance. So, I think part of as we get older, it's hard for some people and for anyone to really learn, like, to back off of that sort of engagement where it's, like, overburdening you and you don't realize it, just like eating the box of wheat thins. You don't realize they're just so good and you're not full, so you're just eating them, and,
And a couple of wheat thins is healthy, whole grains, all that good stuff,
yeah,
but
yeah,
a whole box is carbo loading. So
yeah, and I'm good at that, so
but yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, sometimes those brick walls, they can be people, and it can be people in
yeah,
communities, it can be people in fandoms. It's one of the reasons that I'm so critical of communities and fandoms, is because to me that is a brick wall that I am not willing to scale. I'm not willing to run through it to be a part of a group of people that, whose approval I don't necessarily want,
mm,
you know, to be part of an in group. Obviously, we all want
yeah,
that on some level, but, like, you should pursue that in a personal community first. If you're going to pursue having an in-group online, you know, understand that you're not going to agree with everyone, with even within your in-group, and then make sure that that's people that you actually care about their opinions,
yeah.
and
Yeah, and in real life, a good example, it could be where the brick wall is family, but not that it's their fault. It's just more of you maybe have to figure out how to interact with different family members to almost meet that need of whatever relationship as a family member you are, that can then afford you the freedom to do the things you wanna do.
Mhm.
It's kind of like a responsibility, like, yeah, let's say you were the type I'm lucky, with my wife, I can do all this stuff, but we also spend a lot of time together. I spend time with
Yeah.
her, so it's not like I'm always just off doing this, and there are times where she will have to remind me. I'm like, "Hey, I gotta record a video." She's like, "Well, didn't you already do a video today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but technically that was a stream," and then I'm like, "Well, I know what she's actually saying. I
Right.
haven't hung out with my wife at all today." And so it's like, once you figure out those dynamics, it actually gives you the freedom to overcome those walls. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the scheduling and the consistency
Yes.
aspect.
Yeah.
When we first started streaming together, it was always kind of, we were usually up in the air where it was like, "Hey, are you free this day? Can we do
Yeah.
this day? Can kind of work around it?" And it was the same thing when I was streaming my D&D campaigns, because it was like trying to
Oh,
coordinate
yeah.
5 to 8 people in their 30s, which, everyone has their own families, their own job schedules and stuff. Some guys worked overnight, so they were like, "Ooh, no, I can't work then, cuz or I can't play then because of this." And, that would drive my wife insane. But now that we have a fairly regular schedule where, we have our hour that we spend together Wednesdays and Thursdays, that makes it a lot easier, and again, gives you that freedom to indulge in the things
Yeah.
that you want to do and need to do to be successful, without pushing away the people in your life that you care about the most.
Yeah, because you know what? At the end of the day, you do need to indulge. You do need that time for yourself. It's very important, but manage, balance. Everything is about the balance.
Oh man, I wish I still had my meme of is the cure to male loneliness starting a military company with your friends, and it's like Catra with the Maganot core.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, it's yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at the chat, and honestly, it seems like this is something that you guys are already well aware of. These are things that you guys, maybe you guys are more enlightened than I am because clearly you guys have the right idea. You know,
Well, no, I was gonna ask, would you say you currently are hitting a brick wall with something right now? Was it painting that you were bringing up? As
yeah,
if a filter maybe where you're like, "Yeah, I don't need to be painting as much."
yeah, I've hit that brick wall a couple of times, I think, in the past, and I think
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons that I started the Patreon initially as a way of kind of helping people or letting. Let me rethink how I'm going to say this. It gave me an opportunity because I know that if I were to just shotgun a poll out on YouTube or on Discord, you know, everyone would just say, "Well, no, you should keep doing everything. You should keep
Yeah.
making video games. You should keep making tabletop content. You should keep doing programming tutorials. You should keep doing Gunpla." That's not helpful.
Yeah. 'Cause
And
usually
so the
people are pretty
Patreon.
nice about that, because they like you for who you are, and they're like, "No, all your stuff is cool." And so it's like, "Oh, okay."
Right, and I think that there is such a thing as, like, toxic positivity where it's
Yeah.
like, sometimes your critics are the ones who care about you the most, and that's one of the things that Randy Pausch talks about is a story of a football coach when he was younger that, he was, like, riding him really hard all practice, and one of the assistant coaches was like, "Hey, he was kinda mean to you today, wasn't he?" And he was like, "Yeah, what's his deal?" And he's like, "That means that he cares about you." He's like, "If
Mm.
you're in a position where you're screwing up and no one's saying anything to you, that's a
Oh,
bad place to be."
that very good point. Wow.
Um, so yeah, that said, like I said, the whole reason I started the Patreon was a way to have people that wanted to support me while also kind of voting for the things that were most important about what content I was creating and what products I was creating that were offering the most value to people. And that has allowed me to kind of narrow down my focus even now where it's like last month was the last month that I did, you know, tabletop perks.
Yeah.
I've gone kind of full bore on 3D printing and Gunpla and video game development. The video game development, even then, it's like, that's something that you and I work on in our free time, so to
Yeah.
speak.
And that's a tough thing. Like, I feel like for me, there are so many brick walls with game development. Yeah, I'd love to make a game. If a company called me up like, "Hey, can you help us make a game?" I'd be like, "Yes." But I see all the brick walls.
Oh
There's so
yeah,
many, and I see you always jump over them, and it makes me think, okay. Okay, I'm getting it now." And yeah, maybe one day,
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that, yeah, even doing that has helped me appreciate what it is about particular games that I enjoy the most. And you and I have talked about this where it's like we like making our own fun. We like the systemic gaming. We
Yeah,
like dynamic AI, things
right.
that really challenge the player in unique ways. You know, I'm not in a video game for the 4-hour cutscenes. Like, that's why I didn't pick up Baldur's Gate, even though I'm a big D&D guy. Like,
Yeah. You would
the
rather do that in
gameplay
a
was not.
tabletop setting with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I did manage to whip out the airbrush today.
Oh,
So
yeah. It's the balance, you know?
yeah,
I
you know,
Yeah, even if painting's not as exciting, sometimes there's that need, and then it does make you more positive about the thing you're making. Yeah.
exactly. And again, it goes back to that idea of having multiple hobbies,
Yeah,
things that you can fall back on. Not too many, because you don't want to dilute what it is that you really want to do. But
I agree.
as long as everything that you do is towards a specific goal, and like, yeah, this is something that you were talking about earlier, where it's like, yes, being a filmmaker is the dream, but you know working in YouTube production is not. It's kind of parallel to that because
Right.
you're gaining some of the skills that are going to take you in that direction.
Yeah.
working in video games, it's parallel to that. It's not like if you were painting, then painting is taking you further away from being a filmmaker. So
Yeah.
aligning your hobbies and aligning your goals in a way that, like, even if you're not moving directly towards the target, at least you're moving kind of
Yeah, I think
edgewise.
that's if we can somehow grab that essence, of because I feel like that makes humans like we're so much more similar to each other than we think. There's just
Mhm.
so much in the world that we feel like we're part of these different niches, but really there's like these core things that I think a lot of us, like you and I, we have this like we want to express storytelling. That's what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's like the means we go to do it could be art, could be filmmaking, it might just be, taking a
Posing
photo.
Gunpla.
Yeah, exactly. So and I feel like there's a lot of us that, yeah, we have that desire to express a story, you know?
Yeah, that is a human trait, and I
Yeah.
think it goes back to caveman days, sitting around the fire. Some people telling the story is just building the fire. To other people, it's, "This is the saber-toothed tiger I killed today."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and people are consuming it differently that align with their hobbies and interests. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
Good
kinda
stuff.
coming up to the, end of the hour here, I do feel like we've explored a lot of different ideas, but I don't think that we've necessarily, kind of nailed a way to overcome lack of motivation or, burnout and things like that. But I do feel like we've kind of, um, like I said, just kind of talked about various strategies that you can try to
Yeah,
observe, and hopefully you guys have gotten some value out of it. I definitely, for me, this is like therapy. It's like I get
it
to
is.
kind of talk out these ideas that I've got rolling around in my head, and Adam, you always
Yeah,
do such a good job of kind of helping me
thank you.
process those things.
Yeah, I think what I got out of this, it's balance, and it's not being afraid to, yeah, jump into other hobbies, but have that balance.
Yeah,
That
balance,
balance.
consistency,
Schedule, yeah,
schedule,
consistent, yeah,
whatever it does, and I think the biggest thing, like you said, is making it easier for you to do the things you want to do, making it as easy on yourself as possible.
mhm,
I think that there's actually a dietitian that was saying something like that, where it's like, if you're trying to get in shape, don't commit to, like, I'm gonna go to the gym for 2 hours every week.
yeah,
It's like, no, no, just walk
introduce
for 10
something
minutes,
simple, yeah,
or, like, eat 1 carrot with your dinner. Like, don't make unrealistic expectations of yourself because you're never going to do it.
yeah, that's a great thing to end on, that makes sense.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, go check out that, Randy Pausch lecture if you guys haven't. I think that you're gonna get just as much you're going to get way more value out of that than you did here. And then, of course, check out, Adam's, video about posing
Oh, yeah,
Gunpla and X-Men, because that was pretty sweet.
oh,
I
yeah,
I love that Cyclops, man. I
ah,
I don't think the fact that you haven't taken him out of that pose since
yeah,
is like, that's the
I love it, yeah, yeah, I love kit bashing, the minor kit bashes can just make a whole new figure.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you
Yeah,
guys for
thank you.
chatting and sharing your experiences as well. I wish you guys all the best in, pursuing your hobbies, pursuing your dreams, your careers, whatever it is that you feel you are stuck in. Hopefully, you may get unstuck,
Yeah, definitely,
using some of these ideas and thoughts. Thank you guys so much. Take it easy.
deal.